He's tall, he's dark, and he's having a bad hair day from hell. His cousins have been spotted from Australia to the Himalayas. Exactly who or what is this wild man of mystery we call Bigfoot? And does he exist outside of our imaginations?
After examining the physical evidence, I can tell you for sure that there is an animal out there.
Can you rule out a human being engaged in some sort of hijinks from being behind that evidence?
Examine the evidence for yourself with believers and skeptics alike. Frightening encounters.
I've never seen nothing like it in my life. I don't think I'll ever camp again.
Giant tracks.
These footprints exist. Something is making them.
And the film that will not go away.
You know, it was so hot inside that suit, and the sweat was just rolling off me.
They don't get shot by hunters. They don't get hit by cars. They're not found dead. They're not found alive. Where are they?
Follow the forensic trail and a real Sasquatch stakeout as science goes after that most elusive and enigmatic of legends, Bigfoot. The first thing you need to know before you go looking for Bigfoot, if there's one of them out there, there must be thousands. Otherwise, they would have gone extinct long ago. But is there any reason to believe that these creatures actually exist? Every year, there are a few dozen new reports of Bigfoot encounters, many from witnesses whom you would expect to know the difference between a bear and a monster ape walking around on 2 feet. 50 years of Bigfoot tracks have been documented, a few showing what some scientists are convinced are the anatomical signatures of a large bipedal primate.
Do we have pieces of evidence that people claim indicate that there's a giant hairy monster running around North America? Yes, there's evidence. There's all kinds of evidence. But the question you have to ask isn't whether there's evidence, is any of this evidence any good?
I'm compelled to conclude that there's a very high probability that this creature exists.
Real or myth, one thing is for certain. There's something very strange going on. Either the most important zoological discovery of our time is living in secrecy under the nose of modern science, or a whole lot of imaginative people are stalking our forests, the architects of a con that has taken on a life of its own. Our search for the truth behind Bigfoot begins in the forbidding mountains of Northern California called Six Rivers National Forest. In the past 50 years, there have probably been more Bigfoot tracks found and Bigfoot sightings reported here than in any other region on Earth. Back in 1958, some of the first tracks were discovered on a logging road construction site. The media jumped on the story, and the local term, Bigfoot, became a household word. Bigfoot gave the little community of nearby Willow Creek, California, a modest claim to fame. On the morning of the annual Bigfoot parade, the town turns out in force, which makes you wonder, is the local Bigfoot lore just good for business? Or do the people here really think there's more to it than that?
I was here firsthand. I do believe in it. We here know the truth. The others can think whatever they want. I believe in it.
Yeah, it's a true story. No, there's somebody out there.
I have everyone there. Do you think Bigfoot's real?
Actually, no, I don't.
Yes, he is.
The town of Willow Creek may have its skeptics and believers, but what about at the National Park Service headquarters here? There is no official position on Bigfoot, but Ranger John McDonald has his own opinions.
From what I've heard from various sources that don't know each other, I think there's some credibility there. And I think it's worth looking for. People do not realize is there is a lot of remote area up here, really remote.
But is it remote enough? Many biologists say that a minimum breeding population of large primates would number in the thousands. Too many to escape detection.
The fact of the matter is that many people have encounters or see things that fit into this profile of an upright, broad-shouldered, flat-faced, hair-covered figure. Many of them just don't talk about it.
People shouldn't underestimate the emotional power of a Bigfoot sighting. All these stories and anecdotes are at their core just eyewitness testimony. It doesn't mean that you dismiss it out of hand, but it means that you need to be careful about how much weight you give it.
People who believe they've encountered Bigfoot agree it is a life-changing experience, even for people not prone to panic, like Highway Patrolman Richard Cale.
That August day I was up there and I cut a pickup load of firewood and finished up and loaded my truck, and I just started down the hill down this logging road. I was coming around a slight left-hand bend in the road, and then I saw a very, very large thing on two legs moving quickly in an upright position. This must sound crazy. I'd say 8 or 9 feet tall. It was big. This was not a beautiful coat. This was really looked like a mess. But you could still see the muscles working under it. It was impressive. And it was gone just like that. I don't know what I saw. I know what I didn't see. I didn't see a human, and I didn't see a bear. I've seen lots of bears. It was not a bear.
Recently, Catherine Markifer was camping with her sister on a nearby mountaintop. They were worried about bears until something much more frightening paid them a visit in the night.
There was no one around, no one at all. My sister was a little scared, thinking a bear was going to get us. Sounds funny. I made her a bed in the back of the Jeep, and she was settling in. I looked out the window, and I thought I seen something and took a second look, and there was Bigfoot, as big as day. I've never seen a torso that big in my whole life. It wasn't only that it was so tall, it was the broad shoulders. I've never seen nothing like it in my life. It scared me so bad, I flew down the mountain as fast as I could go. Never in my life would I ever dream there was a Bigfoot.
Many Bigfoot eyewitnesses seem like remarkably sane people, but eyewitness testimony is notoriously inaccurate, especially when people are frightened.
There is recent research that has suggested that in the conditions of stress and fear, as you would expect, happens in Bigfoot sightings, that the brain actually does an even worse job of remembering what it sees. So really, eyewitness testimony is not reliable. Police detectives know this, lawyers know this, psychologists know this. There's nothing shocking about it, but the problem is that when you apply that to Bigfoot sightings, it's even less reliable.
Eyewitness accounts are one thing. Eyewitnesses who conveniently, perhaps too conveniently, have a film camera with them is an entirely different thing. That was the case in 1967 when 2 cowboys and avowed Bigfoot fans went in search of the creature and apparently captured it on film. The result? A giant, hairy female in full stride who would become the poster child for the Bigfoot movement. What's the story behind this remarkable footage? October 1967. Rodeo cowboy Roger Patterson was broke, fighting cancer, and obsessed with Bigfoot. His dream was to sell a Sasquatch documentary to a Hollywood studio for big bucks. The problem was, Hollywood wasn't calling back. After renting a camera, he and his rodeo friend, Bob Gimlin, headed into the wilds of Northern California to get their money shot. As their story goes, they had spent weeks scouring the mountains of Six Rivers National Forest, where lots of tracks have been found over the years. What happened next is, depending on who you talk to, either one of the most important scientific discoveries of the 20th century or a hoax of almost uncanny genius. A few hours into the ride, Patterson and Gimlin said they noticed a horrible smell in the air. Their horses became skittish. Urging them on, they came around a bend in the trail and saw an immense creature rise up in a creek. Patterson's horse reared, and he hit the dirt. Scrambling up, he got out his camera and began to head after the creature. This is how the famous footage unfolds. Patterson apparently struggles to frame up a shot. As the camera settles down, there it is. At first, barely visible in the distance. A giant, hairy, upright figure. Patterson chases after the creature and finally gets a more detailed look. His subject, apparently a female, strides across a sandbar, then turns and looks. Here, in frame number 352, she reveals a face that many Bigfoot enthusiasts claim cannot possibly be a fake. In barely a minute, it was over. Patterson and Gimlin would make casts of the creature's tracks and unleash their evidence on the world. Roger Patterson would die of cancer in 1972, but his fleeting images refused to go away. Most scientists dismissed the film out of hand. It was clearly a guy in a suit. But enthusiasts are still obsessing over the film, frame by frame. And even established scientists like anthropologist Jeff Meldrum believe there's more here than meets the eye.
To trivialize that piece of evidence as nothing more than a man in a fur suit is to diminish the significance of it, and to reveal a lack of appreciation of the sophistication of that piece of evidence. Because if it is a hoax, it's by far the most elaborate and sophisticated accomplishment that I've ever seen.
We'll be dissecting the film and the tracks in greater detail later, but first we have to ask, if Bigfoot or Sasquatch exists, what on earth is it? Meldrum thinks it may be a descendant of Gigantopithecus, a giant extinct ape known only from a handful of fossils.
If that's the case, then what we're dealing with is simply a parallel story of a large terrestrial hominoid, or ape, not human ancestor, but an ape ancestor, that evolved in a very similar direction as was experienced by early hominids in Africa under similar ecological conditions. So it will add a chapter which will provide interesting insights into our evolutionary history.
Skeptics note that Bigfoot relatives are so widespread around the world as to point to another genesis, the human imagination. Ancient wild man legends are common to almost every wilderness on Earth. Native Americans call him Sasquatch. Australia claims the Yowie. Borneo has the Mayas. In Mongolia and Russia, there are numerous accounts of Almasty, a ferocious hominoid that some Russian scientists have suggested may be the descendants of Neanderthal. But of course, Bigfoot's most glamorous cousin and possible inspiration is the Yeti. In 1951, a reconnaissance expedition to Mount Everest found a set of mysterious tracks on a glacier at 18,000 feet. Expedition leader Eric Shipton, a highly respected climber, published a report in the Times of London. Yeti folklore was reborn as the abominable snowman, but major expeditions in search of the creature came up empty. Everest hero Sir Edmund Hillary would later come to the conclusion that the tracks were those of ordinary animals distorted by melting snow. But the beast was out of the bag. Was it this sensational news story that inspired the modern era of Bigfoot sightings in North America? To answer that, we have to get to the bottom of the Bigfoot evidence, literally. The giant footprints. Are they real or fake? Forensic experts, primatologists and anthropologists have some intriguing and contradictory answers. When it comes to Bigfoot, there's a lot of plaster out there. Casts of giant footprints number in the hundreds, even thousands. Broad, skinny, 5-toed, 3-toed, 6-toed. Nobody thinks they're all real. So clearly there are some folks out there with too much time on their hands and a penchant for mischief. When it comes to Bigfoot mischief, sometimes someone spills the beans. And in 2001, a story came out of Washington's Cascade Mountains that caused a huge uproar in the Bigfoot community. It was the story of Ray Wallace. Ray was apparently a serial planter of Bigfoot tracks, dating back to the 50s when he and his family lived in Northern California. The tracks that kicked off the Bigfoot craze in 1958 were discovered on one of his construction sites, and apparently this was no coincidence. As their story goes, Ray and his family moved from job to job up and down the Northwest, and the suspicious tracks followed them wherever they went. Don Buswell was one of Ray's close friends and confidants.
Just a matter of making tracks and letting people discover them is what it boiled down to, and it was pretty effective.
Ray managed to keep his secret from his own son, Michael, who found out about his dad's handiwork after he died.
And this is what they used to do their pranks. They've had a lot of use.
Ray's wife, Elna, put up with his hobby for over 50 years.
I told him it was all right to do that, but I said, you might get in trouble. He said, oh, I'm not going to get in trouble.
Ray's younger cousin, Dale Lee, was in the loop.
He would never admit that he did anything. Absolutely. In fact, none of them would.
There was a lot of other guys that worked with Dad, and they were involved, in making prints.
I mean, he was full of it. There ain't no doubt about that. And that's the same way he did with Bigfoot. He was just constantly doing something when he had the chance,
And they had straps on them, and we'd put them on our feet. It was pretty effective.
Well, one of their favorites, I think, was to get her on the rope behind a pickup. It would kind of give them momentum to make these big strides, and some of these guys were pretty big fellas.
You drive slow, and you just take these long steps,
Dad had all kinds of casts. He had good ones, he had bad ones. I mean, just like any artist.
He usually did it in the basement, and he'd be down there for hours. He was kind of a perfectionist, and each toe and everything had to be just so.
He was developing a suit. He was working on a suit. He had Mom in one once, and she was.
I said, I'm not going to put that suit on. I said, look at that hill over there. If someone come over that hill, they'll shoot me.
He went as far as he could possibly go, and figured on going a lot further if he hadn't have got sick.
Ray's tracks may, in fact, have kicked off the Bigfoot craze. But one hoaxer, or hundreds, do not necessarily rule out Bigfoot's existence. 2,000 miles away in Conroe, Texas, a forensic detective is on the Sasquatch case. Jimmy Chilcutt is a latent fingerprint expert with an unusual hobby. He is one of the few fingerprint specialists who is also an expert on primate prints.
My job is to catch bad guys in Conroe, Texas. So I'm not out there and look for Bigfoot.
But a few years ago, just for fun, he began to examine casts of Bigfoot prints. To his amazement, he found that some of the casts had dermal or friction ridges, which are like fingerprints on the bottom of the feet. For him, it was the beginning of a transformation from skeptic to believer.
And I started to examine it and noticed actual friction ridges that ran lengthwise down the foot. And the dermal ridges, the texture is about twice the thickness of a human. In humans, the ridge pattern goes across the width of the foot. In this cast, they go down the side of the foot. You know, this is something that we deal with every day. And when we see a ridge pattern flow that's completely opposite of human beings, then, yeah, that is kind of shocking.
Jimmy Felchuri was looking at the print of an unknown primate. It came from California in 1967. Even more surprising, Jimmy found another cast with the same ridge pattern, and it was taken hundreds of miles away in Walla Walla, Washington, 20 years later. And there was more.
It had scars. And scars would be the most difficult thing to fake. Most people don't know it, but when you cut your finger below the epidermis, the friction ridges, as they heal, curl inward. And that's the same thing we have on the Walla Walla cast. You'll notice the scar and the friction ridges curling inward. And this is something that I won't say it can't be faked, but it would be very difficult, and the person faking would have to have a vast knowledge of biology and friction ridges.
Chilcott's conclusion?
The evidence as I've examined is proof positive to me that there is an animal out there, some sort of primate running around in the Pacific Northwest.
Not so fast, says Dr. Esteban Sarmiento. This man knows his primate prints, and he's not afraid to get down and dirty to prove it.
As far as the cast of the footprints of Sasquatch, what I see is there's not a lot of consistency with the prints. And that gives another reason to maybe suspect that they could be manufactured.
An expert in primate anatomy, Sarmiento has spent the last 2 years in Africa chasing big apes. And he decided the only way to approach the problem of Bigfoot tracks was to see if he could fake one for himself.
A footprint with dermal ridges can be faked in a number of different ways. What I did in this case is I made a mold of a Bigfoot print, and I took imprints of dermal ridges of baboons, orangutans, and humans, and I stamped them on my mold.
Using this technique, Dr. Sarmiento can stamp dermal ridges in whatever direction he likes, and even scar tissue on the soles of the cast.
The other thing I can do is I can make a blow-up of my own foot.
He does this by making a mold of his foot in silicone and then soaking it in paint thinner. The silicone soaks up the paint thinner like a sponge, and the result is a very big foot.
I don't do this every day. It's not like my job. I think it's probably reached its limit, huh? This one I soaked for about 4 hours to get from this size to this size. You have the ball of the foot here, and you can see pretty good the details of the dermal ridge, especially like right there, huh? That looks like pretty good dermal ridge there. And I can really keep this process up indefinitely. I can keep making casts of this and making it bigger and making another one and making it bigger ad infinitum. I can make one as big as this. It just would take the time and the effort, a little extra time.
So even the most compelling of Bigfoot prints could be faked by someone with enough expertise and energy. But why would anyone put so much time and effort into messing with people's heads?
I think the mistake that the advocates have always made is they've underestimated the ingenuity and resourcefulness of hoaxers. They assume that somebody is being dishonest or socially irresponsible, that they also must be stupid and incompetent. And I don't think that's the case at all. Some of these hoaxers are very, very creative, and scientists aren't used to looking at things this way.
Skeptics and believers agree the most compelling Bigfoot tracks and sightings have been found in the American Northwest. But Bigfoot has been sighted from Florida to Alaska and just about everywhere in between, and his personality seems to change from place to place. So we're on our way to the bayous of Texas in search of a different kind of Bigfoot, one with a really bad attitude. He's also the target of a kill mission for the sake of conservation, Texas style. This is the Bottomlands, a broody patch of swamp forest in eastern Texas near the border to Louisiana. Not the first territory that comes to mind when you think of Bigfoot. But according to some, this is where the South's version of Sasquatch may be making its last stand. And we're about to join a hunt to take one out. Our guide will be longtime Bigfoot researcher, hunter, and talk radio host, Chester Moore.
Welcome back to the Outdoor Show, talking about the kingpin, the grand poobah, the king of all cryptozoology, Bigfoot creatures. Bigfoot. They'll say, well, what are the differences between the creatures reported in the Northwest and the ones over here? I said, well, the ones in California are a bunch of tree-hugging hippie, sandal-wearing Bigfoots and singing their kumbaya around the campfire and holding hands. Ours listen to Black Sabbath and want to rip your head off. We got big, redneck, crazy, heavy metal Bigfoots. It's a real animal primate that just happened to be very intelligent and very fortunate we hadn't bagged one yet.
Chester's home in Sweetwater, Texas is a taxidermist's dream, but the carcass he's obsessed with still eludes him.
We need to touch him up a little bit, Chester.
He and fellow Bigfoot researcher Chris Stevens hope that one day, for the sake of conservation, they'll bring in a corpse and settle the matter of Bigfoot's existence once and for all. Time may be running out. Instead of the usual 5-toed Bigfoot, they've been finding 3-toed tracks. They suspect that human encroachment is taking a toll on southern Bigfoot's habitat and his sunny nature.
And what I think is happening is I think you're having groups of these animals that are being basically genetically isolated and forced to inbreed to exist. And one of the first things that happens to even humans, weird things happen to your digits when you start inbreeding. And one of the things that inbreeding does to a lot of animals is make them more aggressive.
In the late afternoon, Chris, Chester, and Chester's father, Chester Sr., head out into the bayou on a mission, a kill mission. None of them has ever laid eyes on Bigfoot, but they are pretty sure Bigfoot has laid eyes on them, and 2 of their friends claim to have had sightings. No matter how dangerous southern Bigfoot may be, there's too much at stake for them to give up on the creatures.
There's a big controversy in the Bigfoot community about whether or not we should harvest an animal, kill an animal, to prove finally once and for all that they exist. And I am definitely pro-kill. I think that we should kill an animal, prove that they exist so that we can protect their habitat.
I'm going to mourn the kill, because it's not something I want to go out and shoot and hang on my wall, but at the same time, you've got to do this for the good of the species.
After several hours and no sound or sign of Sasquatch, the hunting party moves on, guns at the ready. At another stakeout spot, Chester explains that it is here where they have had some of their strangest encounters.
It's a real promising spot we're in right now. There have been all kind of vocalizations heard right in this zone from people. It's the only spot I go to that gives me the creeps. It's a very dark set of woods. It's just got a real creepy, intense vibe to it.
As on previous stakeouts, the hunters eventually begin to feel like the hunted.
I keep hearing something moving around back there.
Something walking around right now. Whatever it was followed us in.
It's one thing when you're out here and you're not sure if the animal exists. It's another thing when you know that the animal out here is 7 or 8 feet tall and perfectly capable of ripping your arms off.
We've had sticks thrown at us. We've had all kind of wild stuff happen.
Apparently, something may be trying to encourage them to leave.
Right here. This tree was placed here while we were over there. It wasn't here before. It was placed in the middle of the trail.
They've been out here in the dead of night for hours, sure that Bigfoot was nearby. But finally, as dawn approaches, they decide to pack it in. Bigfoot neglected to show himself on this trip, perhaps not realizing that by sacrificing himself he could save his species. But Chester is undeterred.
I'm honored that I'm able to have this kind of close encounter with one of God's most amazing creatures. That's cool.
From Northwest's hippie Bigfoots to Texan killer Bigfoots, We now travel to Tennessee, where Bigfoot can be positively neighborly.
The fact that Bigfoot takes on a different persona depending on what region you're from is actually to be expected, because if Bigfoot is in fact more of a social construct than a real creature, that would explain why.
Here in the Smoky Mountains, a southern Bigfoot clan seems to be making another stand in the life and heart of Janice Carter. She claims to have grown up with an entire colony of Bigfoots who started visiting her grandfather 60 years ago. It may sound like a tabloid story, but her guest, Russian researcher Igor Burtsev, thinks she's the real deal. 50 years ago, Igor was among the investigators who dug up and studied the remains of Quit, a supposed half-breed, son of a Russian Bigfoot mother and a human father. When he heard about Janice, he had to come to America to investigate.
It was so exciting that we could not ignore this, because now we understand that she is a unique woman. She is only expert in the world who knows so much things about these creatures. She is like Jane Goodall for the chimpanzee.
He was here in 99.
And she...
Janice's Bigfoot family is apparently so large that Igor is having trouble keeping them straight.
Has no any children.
He's trying to map out a genealogy.
But now Shay is Nikki's son. Nikki had Shay.
Janice claims that she's known Fox, the colony's patriarch, since she was 4.
I don't see how he could be Fox's son. And Fox is black and has black skin. And how...
Because her story has been greeted with skepticism, even within the Bigfoot community, Janice has been trying to gather evidence, but it is difficult. She says that Fox and the others are extremely camera shy. Apparently, she did gather some hair samples, which she got from Fox, much to his surprise, when he came to her door.
March the 23rd of this year, he knocked on the door here, and he wanted garlic. They use garlic to keep mosquitoes and bugs off of them, and also I guess it's good for fleas and stuff too. But anyhow, he asked for garlic, and I asked him if he wanted powdered garlic, and he said no, he wanted the clove, and I happened to have some.
Does he speak English?
He speaks English, yes.
What's his voice sound like?
Very deep and gurgler. It's like, for him to say hello, it's like, ow. So he's up here. He reached out his hand, still had it like this, reached up, went to put the garlic in his hand and reached up this and pulled hair out of his wrist. His eyes got really big. And I'm standing here like this, and he said, thank you. Went down the bank and said, okay, we got it.
Because Janice recalls endlessly watching the Bigfoot family in the wild, she's become Igor's key to understanding how the animal survives.
Spent more time in the trees watching them than I did playing or doing anything. I was out from daylight to dark and just sitting up in the trees listening and watching.
Janice claims to have witnessed the Bigfoot clan hunting on many occasions.
They hunt in relays. The first one will run the deer toward that one, and that one will run it out in the open. They're faster on all fours than what they are on 2 feet. We clocked hogs at 45 miles an hour on all fours.
Igor offers to reenact the Bigfoot takedown technique.
The one that initiates the kill then starts chasing the deer. Reach out, grab the back leg, snap it in 2. Reach up with the other hand under the chin, and push and force the head back until the neck breaks. Then they'll take their fingernails, which are really sharp, and slit the belly. They take the innards out, reach in, pull the liver out, and the heart. When I was little, it bothered me really bad, and it still bothers me. I don't want to see them kill anything because it's gruesome, but I've sort of grown used to it.
Janice is fully aware that people think she's living in a fantasy world. But for her, Fox and the others are real, and they're family.
They're very highly intelligent, and they do use a language. They have a culture.
I think what we're left with is that Bigfoot is a mythological creature. I don't think Bigfoot is a biological problem. What I think it is, it's a very interesting cultural anthropological problem and a very interesting psychological problem.
If that psychological problem has a Rorschach test, it's this. A mere 24 feet of film that has remained the centerpiece of the argument for more than 35 years. How does it stand up to the intense scrutiny of the digital age? You might be surprised.
Hopefully the rest of the community will do the same kind of thing, you know.
Back in Texas, Bigfoot hunter Chester Moore has invited his friend and fellow enthusiast M.K. Davis over for an examination of the famous Patterson-Gimlin film. Davis, an amateur astronomer, has used skywatching techniques to dissect our very down-to-earth Sasquatch.
Basically, technology has caught up with this film. This is a digital world, and you're able to do wonderful things through digital analysis. There you see it blinking its eye, and you see a scar on the forehead actually going up and down as well as the eye blinking.
That's not consistent with a stiff, rigid rubber costume.
Not at all. It's only 2 frames apart, and you're looking at that kind of movement there, you're looking at something that's extremely dynamic. Of course, I've got the head stabilized, and that makes all this facial movement very easy to see.
When it's proven and the body's brought in, it's going to be looked at as the most important biological film ever. I mean, I really believe that.
Dr. Jeff Meldrum appreciates MK's enthusiasm for the subject, but suspects he might be reading a little too much into film grain. Still, his reading of the film leads him to the same conclusion. This is just not consistent with a hoax.
With a distinctive, I can go on to name muscle group after muscle group that are evident, clearly evident, even given the limited resolution of the film. Here's a very clear shot of a frame that was enlarged when the film subject was still fairly close to Patterson. And so it affords us an exceptional view of some of the details of the anatomy. We can see the major muscle groups such as the gluteus muscles. You can see the shoulder blades, and in the film in motion see the movement of the shoulder blades as the arms swing, as they glide beneath the skin. Another anatomical detail that can be determined in the film is the ratio of the respective limb lengths. And that's well outside the range of human variation.
According to Meldrum's calculations, the limb proportions are all wrong for a human in a suit. The arms are nearly as long as the legs. All of these details, along with the consistency of the film with the tracks cast at the scene, make Meldrum wonder how it could possibly be a fake. But when it comes to this bit of film, even in the scientific arena, it seems details are often in the eye of the beholder.
Go.
Good. So far, ready to speak.
Dr. Daniel Schmidt is an expert in using video analysis to understand animal locomotion. Dr. David Daegling, the one wired for motion, is an anthropologist.
Go ahead. All right.
Together, they've scrutinized the Patterson-Gimlin film, and for them, it comes up short.
It's not a good piece of wildlife photography. It's an absolutely terrible piece of scientific imagery. The subject on the film always occupies a very, very small part of the frame. You've actually got to blow the image up. And when you blow the image up, that image quality is going to deteriorate.
The problem is the video's too difficult. You can't identify where the elbows are on that animal, or the wrists, or the shoulder, even worse, or the hip. It is virtually useless in determining specific anatomy. From this film, you can identify that there is an upright walking biped in that film that has arms and legs. In terms of the limb ratios, the speed, the stride length, nothing can be determined from that film. There's not enough data in it. And to make claims otherwise isn't scientifically valid.
It's time to go back to the source, Washington's Cascade Mountains, where the Bigfoot filmmakers grew up. If the Patterson film is a hoax, there are 3 witnesses. One, Roger Patterson, is dead. The second, Bob Gimlin, isn't talking. So the question is, what about the guy in the suit? Several people have come forward over the years to claim that particular honor. We're here to meet Bob Hieronymus, who as a young man used to ride with Patterson and Gimlin. Bob claims that back in '67, he was the guy who strode across Bluff Creek in Patterson's Bigfoot suit. Around here, there are a lot of people who will back Bob's story up. And, well, there's that walk.
People say I walk like Bigfoot anyway.
To his friends, Bob's Bigfoot role is old news.
I've heard a lot of people say, can you believe that old Bob was really Bigfoot? That was a lot of people say that,
Bob says his secret wasn't much of a secret around here.
My biggest concern always was that somebody's going to shoot you,
That was my big concern wearing the suit.
That was my big concern all the time.
Everybody around here, after a few years knew that was me.
Oh yeah. We knew it.
We all everybody just kind of kept it quiet.
According to Bob, Roger Patterson approached him in the fall of 1967 with an offer that was too good to pass up.
He wanted a pretty good sized guy, somebody that they could trust to wear this Bigfoot suit. They said that we'll pay you $1,000 and it'll only take about 10 minutes. So I was 26 years old at the time. I jumped on it,
After a trial run in Yakima, Bob says, they all shook hands and agreed to rendezvous in California in a few weeks' time. They met up in Bluff Creek, home of the infamous Wallace tracks and many Bigfoot sightings.
The next morning we got up and they made coffee and saddled up the horses, put the Bigfoot suit on the back of one of the horses. We went seemed like about a half a mile from where they were camped up into this place where they had picked out before I got there to film the Bigfoot film. We unloaded the suit, and of course they helped me in it. It was in October, and I figured everybody be hunters. Most people go to the mountains and have a gun, it was so hot inside that suit, and the sweat was just rolling off me, and I was nervous, and a little bit claustrophobic. Roger told me to go over at this certain place and stand there. I got out there and waited, and he gave me the signal. He was sitting on one of my horse that he took down there, and so he took the camera and kind of went like that. As you can see, the film is shaky. I started walking out across there, and I walked, I don't know how many yards it was, and I turned, the old Bigfoot looked at him and went on. All this time, waiting for a bullet to crack through my butt. That was the end of it.
Good job.
I thought I'd done a pretty good job.
You done?
Millions of people have been fooled all these years. If they would have paid me the $1,000 like they promised, I would have kept my mouth shut.
Of course, there's no hard evidence to prove Bob's story either. The suit hasn't turned up. What it boils down to is, was Roger Patterson incredibly lucky? Or a hoaxer of extraordinary gifts? And in the end, experts on both sides of the equation agree. You certainly can't prove Bigfoot's existence, but for that matter, you can't completely rule it out.
The bottom line is simply this: these footprints exist, these casts exist, something is making them. I've come to the conclusion that we're simply dealing with a great ape.
There's a very strong will to believe, and I think part of it is people don't want the mystery solved. I think a lot of the public is just as happy to have it remain a mystery. There is no way to establish beyond a reasonable doubt that there's such an animal without having a body on a dissecting table. We have to ask the question, if there's an animal out there, why haven't we found it? I don't see anything that is going to encourage me to quit my day job to go looking for these hairy giants.